about the over-presentation in teaching structure and the limitation and the strengths. Over-presentation is a presentation in which someone presents the material very freely and relates it to various aspects or objects. The point is that during the presentation, sometimes the presenter associates his material with something that relates to the material being presented. For example, they all experiences or stories relate to the material being taught, so that people understand more about what is being understood, what is being presented. Okay, for the first is it is easier to understand the topic explained. When the teacher uses a presentation like this, the teacher will automatically tell a lot about things out there related to the topic discussed in the presentation. When that happens, the teacher will give several examples of events to the student or also their own experience to tell to the student, so that student can imagine the event taught by the teacher and then relate them to the material that has been explained. This is usually able to make students have high imaginations. They will imagine these events, then synchronize with the material that has been taught. The second is broaden student mind. As explained in the first point, students tend to think more broadly when imagining something. When the teacher uses this presentation technique, it means that the teacher will make students think more broadly to get the points intended by the teacher. So the teacher must be smart in choosing objects or stories that will be given by their student, because the stories that will be given to student will be more easily understood by simple stories, because they allow listener to convey ideas more effectively by using example or metaphors. And the third is develop students' critical thinking. Critical thinking is a process in which a person's mind always wants to know things that he just knows or has just incurred. Or it could also be said that in the intellectual process or critical thinking, individuals make use of wise, autonomous, clear, and responsible thinking to consistently evaluate the caliber of reasoning. Based on the understanding, it can be interpreted that critical thinking has a big impact on students, because by thinking critically, students can express the ideas that want to express confidently without fear of mistakes. Likewise, in the over-presentation, students are asked to always think critically. They provide various kinds of topics that must be discussed. Of course, with a presentation like this, it can develop student critical thinking, because it supports student thinking power to further issues their critical thinking. This is of course good for students, because the more that they get material or topic from the teacher, the more critical their thinking is, and this is very good for their future, where in the world of work they must be able to think critically in order to get a job or survive in the world of work, where we know the work of work is very tough. The fourth is establishment of emotional bonds for teacher and students. As we know, the teacher is an unsung hero. The teacher has many roles, such as the role of the teacher as an educator, the role of the teacher as a facilitator, the role of the teacher as a model, and teacher also teach us good manner in the school environment or outside. So that the emotional bond between teacher and student must always be intertwined, because in addition to establishing friendship between teachers and students, they can also get a good academic grades. So this method is suitable for establishing emotional relationship between teacher and student. And the last is easy for student to remember. When the teacher present material using an over presentation, it means that the presentation is done by giving a story to add to the student shadows to make them understand more about the concept presented by the teacher. With this method, a student can quickly understand the material being taught. And also in the world of work, if someone is fluent with this method, opinions and suggestions for office mates, superiors, or the general public will be easy to remember. Okay, for the next material is a delimitation of overrepresentation. First is takes a lot of time. As explained above, the presentation using this method has many strengths, but the many strengths do not rule out the possibility that this method does not have limitations. At this point, the first limitation that will be discussed is the amount of time needed to present the material being taught. Using the overt presentation method, we already know that when explaining material, we know that if the teacher uses this method, the teacher will tell a story, or you can say a lecture, because they will explain many things. First, they will explain the material first in detail and easy to understand. Then after explain, they will give a story or even relate to the material that has been explained. This makes the teacher often bother or overwhelmed to manage their time for other parts of learning. As we know, in class, we don't just listen to the teacher present the material. There are also other aspects that complement the learning process that will be carried out by the students. And the next is student get bored. When the teacher explains the material using this method, the teacher will automatically explain more in front of the class, which makes a student bored. The reason students are bored may be because the activities are monotonous, and that's all. And moreover, the method discussed is also a method in which the teacher talks more, asks more questions, and give more information. According to Activa 2022, students will quickly become bored if the smart teacher only use the same learning approach, the same learning technique, or the same learning media for an extended period of time. So that over time, that feeling of boredom will evolve and spread into various kind of negative attitudes. For example, when you are bored because you often hear the teacher explain using this method, so that the student is sleepy. And the next and the last is a student become confused with the material being studied. When the students are at the time when the teacher use the broadcast that is being discussed now, namely at an an over presentation where the teacher combined broadcast by giving case example in the form of stories or teacher's experience, or can also take stories from other people's stories. If this happens, maybe some student will feel an anxiety because their ability to understand the teacher's presentation may be rather low, and they will also feel embarrassed because they cannot compete with their other friends. Moreover, if the student does not socialize with his friends because he feels embarrassed, it will be difficult for the student to restore his self-confidence. Or it could also be that the student is no longer sure of himself, meaning he no longer believes in the abilities he has. Also feels hopeless because he doesn't have same abilities as his friends, according to Alma Som. A person may experience self-doubt for various reasons, one of which is the fact that he often compares himself to others. Therefore, students who lose self-confidence will find it difficult and inevitably feel confused by the material provided by the teacher, especially in open presentations. Okay, for the last chapter is a conclusion, and my conclusion is over presentation method is actually a method that can be used at certain times. This presentation cannot always be used because the impact is very large. It be either negative or positive. As prospective teachers, we must be able to control or able to decide when this method will be used, because if a teacher can master this method, he will easily attract attention and be able to educate his students. Okay, I think that's all for my presentation today. Thank you for your attention, and Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.